Welcome to the Tucson NetworKings podcast. I'm your host, Gordy, along with master networker and sales guru, Don Zavis. Together, we talk about how to get the most of your business networking in Southern Arizona. We'll discuss tips, tricks, what to do, what not to do, with some amazing people that know how to build lasting business relationships from this thing called business networking. So strap in and enjoy the show. Welcome, everyone, to the Tucson NetworKings podcast. I'm your host, Gordy Seward, with co-host as well, Don Zavis. Today, we have a fantastic treat for everybody. We have a gentleman, Frank Vidal. He's well known in Tucson and surrounding areas, especially Oro Valley. I'm a Frank fan. There's a lot of Frank fans in the room here with us. So we welcome Frank. Frank, welcome.
Thank you.
Appreciate
you being here.
Thank you for having me. Super excited to be here and getting to chat with you guys.
Yes.
We love it. We love it. So, Frank, we're going to dive right in today. We're just going to, I was talking, my notes are missing, so I'm just going to wing it today and we'll see what happens. Frank, you run a networking event, Tucson Thrive.
Yes.
Tuesday evenings.
Yes.
Invite only, right?
No.
You know,
it's open.
Okay.
It's a free virtual mastermind for anyone to attend.
Okay.
The only real thing is usually we prefer people to live or work in Tucson.
Okay.
Those are kind of the only two criteria.
Okay. I can tell you from experience, I've been on Frank's, it's virtual, right? Virtual event. It is probably the most Tucson networking event in Tucson. It's got a Tucson feel to it, a Tucson vibe to it. You'll go there not knowing what to expect, and you may end up in tears and joy and all kinds of other emotions that Frank puts you through. So today we want to talk about how he started it, why he started it, what keeps you going, all those wonderful things. So Frank, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, my name is Frank Vidal. I work full-time at Tohono O'odham Park as the development and membership manager. And about 2 years ago, due to a number of things and motivators, I started Tucson Thrive. And we meet every single Tuesday night virtually, and it is free from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. And really, just to give you the long story short on what it is it is a place for Tucsonans to come together and have real and meaningful conversations. And it's not, we call it a mastermind group, even though there is networking involved. It's not, the typical traditional networking event. And that's a little bit about it.
Okay. You mentioned there was a number of motivators that made you, what were those motivators that caused you to create such an awesome thing?
Yeah. So a big one really was I was meeting with a lot of people one-on-one at coffee shops.
Why?
My work through Tohono O'odham, but also my LinkedIn presence and, things like that, and just friendships and just kind of my involvement in the community. I just want to get to know other people and vice versa. And I was sitting down having coffee with someone one day, and I said to myself, I kind of feel guilty. And I had just had a wonderful conversation. Maybe it was like a 2-hour coffee. We really got to know each other. And I said to myself, I'm doing this 2, 3 times, 4 times a week. And I feel awful because I'm hogging this relationship all to myself. And so that's what really kind of pushed me over the edge to come up with Tucson Thrive. And it's this event where you and I could be having a conversation one-on-one, but what happens if we fill the virtual room with whoever wants to be there?
Lots of people, yeah.
And as I get to know whoever I'm interviewing, because I do interview somebody every single week, others are there. They're along for the ride. We're inviting them into the story, into the interview, and I'm not just growing the relationship with them. The audience is growing in the relationship with them. So it's that was one of the big motivators, is just getting other people involved.
See, and I love. We were talking pre-show if you can't find what you want, make it. And for every person like yourself that actually does it, there's probably 20 people that have wonderful ideas that for whatever reason never act upon them, whether it's time, circumstance, and most aren't virtual. The vast majority of the ones that I know of tend to be face-to-face, which of course is limiting, because if it's during the day, a lot of people have daytime jobs and can't come. If it's at night, a lot of people have challenges with family commitments and kids and things of that nature. So it was hard. Now during COVID, the whole world went virtual.
Yeah.
But I think that it was always kind of like the stepchild of face to face. Nobody really wanted it. It just kind of had to be because of the circumstances. And yours was actually developed from scratch as a virtual.
Yeah.
So there's almost no reason why you couldn't be there virtually anywhere on the earth.
And, I think the virtual component was a very big element of Tucson Thrive. And the reasons are, when you are going to a networking event, if it's not free, there's membership fees, right? Then you got to drive across town. So you're spending gas, but also you're spending your time.
Yep.
And you get to the event, you buy a drink, maybe 2 drinks, you buy some food. Mm-hmm. So I always see dollar signs when I think about attending an event. Mm-hmm. And so, the other thing is if it's in the evening, you got to get a babysitter, or you got to figure out a way for your children. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so that's a big reason why Tucson Thrive is free and it's virtual. And it's really about eliminating all of the barriers of entry to networking. Right.
Well, there's a lot of financial disincentivizations to people where parking costs, and you're right, it can be a relatively expensive time to go even for an hour. Yeah. But again, the part that I love is that yours was built as an online, as opposed to again being default to online. And are you able to translate? A lot of people love the socialization. And having been on yours, it seems like that translates into there. I mean, I recognize that it's virtual, but it doesn't feel like there's 9 million people and, you're just one of the, nameless, faceless in the back. You can be as involved or as uninvolved as you choose to be. I really do think the virtual, I don't think there's going to be a substitute for face-to-face, but I think that the virtual is a very unexplored frontier. Yeah, that I think you guys are right on the tip of the spear of.
Yeah, and what's great is it's a 60-minute program, and so literally every minute is curated. Mm-hmm. So first half is a group discussion, and it's facilitated by a member of the community, and maybe it's about mentality, mindset, setbacks, vulnerability. All sorts of different topics. And the second half is the interview with a speaker. And I think what's unique is the audience can get involved in the interview. Right. And so unlike a traditional panel or a presentation where it's more of a one-way conversation, I mean, people here raise their hands, people type in the chat and we read it, and it's very interactive. And it's interesting, one of the byproducts that I didn't even think about when we launched this was people who are really introverted. And so when it comes to networking, it's hard for an introvert a lot of times to walk into a room and feel a sense of belonging. Right. Wow, here's a room full of people, everyone's talking, it's really loud, people know each other, I don't know anybody, and it can be super, super intimidating. Right. And so because every second is curated at Tucson Thrive, and people are in the comfort of their own homes, people feel safe.
That's true, I never thought about that.
It's kind of attracted a bit of an introverted group.
Right. One thing that I find interesting, and you asked, the people that you have be speakers to tell a story. I think you asked me one time, and we had a conversation. I got nothing to talk. I'm just an average guy, I don't. And you said, well, no, you made me kind of think back. And everyone has a story to tell, which was really neat about what you did, And you need to tell that story. You started digging in what I had floating around in my head, and so I like the fact that I consider myself the average guy working in Tucson. I didn't think I was that special enough to be one of your speakers on your your event, but I enjoy how everyone has a story, and the stories that come out of that are phenomenal.
Yeah.
And we had that one gentleman that went through a lot of different stuff out there in the streets and came in and is doing well. But did you have something?
Yeah, I do. I just want to. So what made you decide? Because obviously most people that have started anything had a period of time where they were thinking of it, maybe a little pre-production, thinking of it. And then for some precipitating event, be like, I'm ready now. This is it. Next Tuesday, I'm, putting invitations together, communicating it to everyone. Was there that precipitating event that, because again, if you skewed like most people, they thought about it for a while, maybe started a little bit, but there was generally something that made it, got to do it.
Yeah. So there's a couple, this realization, having coffee with that individual was one of the tipping points. But another one was I was rejected from another community that I was involved with. And when that happened to
Revenge.
me... No, literally. It kind of was.
I'm Sicilian. We invented revenge.
I was pouring my heart and soul into people and a community and this organization. And even though it's a great organization, some things had occurred. And I said to myself, I should just start this.
Yep.
And this is really the rejection. I'm going to go build something that has as much meaning to me personally, but to other people as well. And I'm going to do things differently. And I think that's a huge component of why Tucson Thrive will always be free. And when you build something that is from the beginning always free and there's no monetization, I'm never going to ask you for money. I'm never going to walk into a room and people are going to think, oh, here comes Frank. He's going to ask me for money.
Exactly.
It has a different vibe.
Yeah. It completely does. I even, one of the events that I did, I didn't like the idea that my attendees had to pay for parking, and it was a 5-story parking deck, and even that, again, I wanted no disincentivization at all. I want no reason why, but I love yours because its distance is irrelevant. All those things are kind of not built into it.
Speaking of paying for stuff, we're going to take a quick break for our sponsor.
The Tucson Network Kings podcast is brought to you by Sarah Souders, your local Tucson native real estate advisor with Russ Lyon Sotheby's International Realty, where luxury is an experience, not just a price point. Feel welcome to contact Sarah today at 520-305-6974. Arizona license SA 708-354-000.
All right, we're back with Tucson's Network Kings with Don Zabas and Frank Vidal. Frank, again, thank you for coming in.
Yes, thank you.
Frank runs an amazing networking event called Tucson Thrive, and we're here talking about it. Told a little story about how it got started. Now, you mentioned how you were working on your personal brand and getting out there. Don's a sales guy. He's a sales coach. I think he says his goal is to make your cash register ring.
Absolutely.
I'm in sales. The core of this, not the core, but one of the things we talk about is business networking in this one. So my question to you, you mentioned how you were kind of working on your personal brand and, with Tohono Chul and the park and everything. What are you getting out of it? Is there a dollar amount, or is there a monetary value, or is it just strictly for connections or feel goods? What are you getting out of it?
That's a great question. The only thing I want to get out of it is friendship.
Okay.
And
can't put a dollar sign on that, can you?
It's maybe cliche, maybe it's corny, but my journey really started out of fear of perhaps one day losing my job. And I said to myself, okay, I don't have a college degree. How can what skills do I need to develop to put myself on that same level? And that's where my personal brand, my community involvement, my LinkedIn, that's where it kind of all originated, is leveling that playing field. And I come from a sales background as well. And so, that's, I'm sorry, Gordy, I totally...
No, I think that's where we connect. We're kind of
both kind of.
Oh, what am I getting out of it?
Yeah.
It's friendship, but really, Tucson Thrive is not the end all. Okay. I always end almost every single event by saying, this is just the beginning. Tucson Thrive is the gateway to everything else. Mm-hmm. It's a way to get people in the room, and then it's really up to you to make the magic happen afterwards. Mm-hmm. And so it's not a, I never want Tucson Thrive to for people to feel like that's what's needed for success, because it's not. It's really all about relationships, and we're all in sales, and I have a sales background as well. And really, it's all about trust, and that's why Tucson Thrive is not necessarily about selling something. There's no sales pitches, there's no presentations. Yeah. And
it's interesting about it, yeah.
That's on purpose. I want the last question, and here's a networking tip. How long can you last before you ask someone at a networking event what they do for a living? If my goal sometimes when I walk into a networking event is never to ask that question. Because to me, yes, it's somewhat relative and it's important, but I rather want to get to know that person. I want to get to know who they are, what they believe, what their values are, and I want to build that friendship. And there's that, and you guys know this. You want to do business with people trust.
Yeah, and believe in.
It's that kind of principle to an extreme.
Yeah, well, that's really, and going back, I've had a previous podcast about networking in Tucson, and this is our 7th episode on this one. We have more coming out real soon, more episodes coming out, but that's been the core of every single episode is make the connections first, make the relationship first, and then everything else will kind of come after that. So so you're really about making the relationships.
Well, and a component of it too is social currency. That's some kind of a new phraseology, which means that there is monetary certainly, but there is that social currency, that having connections, having relationships, needing help, asking favors. You put it out into the community. You're liked and loved. You put an ask out in the community, there will be a tidal wave of people coming to your assistance. There are other people that are obscure and they do everything to keep themselves a secret, and they're really good at it, and then they wonder why nobody knows they exist.
Yeah, and that's part of like going back to the fear is if I did get fired from a job, what can I always guarantee is going to be there for me? The community that I build.
Absolutely.
And so if I get fired, chances are more than likely I feel pretty confident if I have a really strong community. And
I can tell you from experience, that works.
Yeah.
It recently happened. Yeah. It wasn't a firing situation, but my position where I was at was eliminated.
Right.
And it was the community. I feel blessed. I feel humbled.
There were dozens and dozens of people. I remember seeing that.
Yeah. I really want to thank everyone out there that stepped up and gave and helped out in any way they could. And it's the same. It's the same thing. It's fun. You're just bringing all the bells back here in my head because I know exactly what you're talking about.
But a lot of it too is it's visibility, and one of the things that we talk about in the development of marketing and development of networking. When you're kind of the developer, everyone who comes through the group knows you. The groups that I'm involved with, I'm a sales trainer and keynote speaker and and sales coach. I don't even hardly say that, because they know you, they know who you do, they know what a good prospect for you looks like. It's almost like you elevate your place you work at now. It's fabulous. But the idea is you're elevated so there's really no sales pitch, and yet you're visible to them. So when they see you, they, in the back of their mind, know your facility, know the opportunities, how beautiful it is, and the things that can be done there. So again, it's a matter of visibility. Nowadays, there's so much noise in the machine. If you don't pick a good way to be visible and be heard and seen, you're really going to struggle.
So I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier. You liked, and this is for tips that are people that are out there. You want to go as long as you can without asking what somebody does. So what are some other questions that you would ask? Let's say we meet at a networking event and you see on my name tag and I see yours, and
it's my wife hates me when I say when I meet somebody and I automatically go into a deep philosophical conversation, because that's just kind of the person.
Well,
I am.
how did they start?
Let's start a little easy.
Okay.
What brought you here tonight?
Okay. That's a good
What
one.
brought you to this event?
Okay.
I love that one because I don't think people expect it. And, it kind of gives them an opportunity to tell you what their goals are. Oh, my coworker brought me.
Okay.
Oh, I'm a business development role at X, Y, and Z, and I'm looking for potential clients.
Okay.
What? I just heard about it because I'm a part of this organization and they invited them tonight. And so it kind of gives me an in of like, okay, are they here for business? Mm-hmm. I mean, everyone to some degree is.
Yeah.
Right?
Some people network to make new friends. You just moved into town.
Yeah, there's a social component to it,
So
absolutely.
I do love that question.
Okay, that's a really good one.
And it's easy. Anyone can do that. What brought you here tonight? Or what brought you here today? What brought you to this event? Mm-hmm. But I mean, you've been to Thrive events, and I like to go deep.
Yes, you do.
And that's why Tucson Thrive is really about the real, meaningful conversations.
There's one question regarding that, and I want to know what your thoughts are on it. They say in business networking and there's certain topics that are off limits. Some politics, or really. I notice you've never shied away from those. So what are your thoughts on that?
So I think the first thing that comes to my mind is I recently had a guest speaker, and we talked a lot about faith.
Okay.
And, it's interesting. We started talking about faith, and everyone that was there was loving it.
Okay.
The emojis are flying. People are commenting. People want to get involved in the conversation. And it's a great reminder that we're all humans. Mm-hmm. We all, behind the suit and the tie and the business card, we are all somewhat the same, right? We're all humans, and we all have the same emotions, and for the most part, we go through a lot of the same things.
Any reluctance or fear of losing part of an audience because of a certain topic?
No.
Okay.
And that's the thing. Tucson Thrive can be very divisive, and because of the way it's structured. People either love it or they hate it.
Okay.
If you're not into vulnerability and having those meaningful conversations, you're going to hate it. And there's been plenty of people who have come to an event and I never see them again. And I'm like, great. You just filtered yourself out, and now I know you're not the person that we're looking for.
Okay.
And the other thing too is we're not really looking for quantity as we are quality. So Dunbar's numbers, I'm looking for 50 people, in our ecosystem that are, involved. They participate, they attend, they, even our in-person events, they chit-chat with each other. I'm not looking to, I'm not looking for 100, thousands of people.
Okay.
I'm looking for 50 people that I can bring into my circle and I can have really, really strong connections with.
And you do. Awesome.
I like that.
We're going to take one more quick break before the end of the show, and we'll come back and get some more questions from Frank and wrap it up.
The Tucson Network Kings podcast is brought to you by Sarah Souders, your local Tucson native real estate advisor with Russ Lyon Sotheby's International Realty, where luxury is an experience, not just a price point. Feel welcome to contact Sarah today at 520-305-6974. Arizona license SA 708-354-000.
So thank you so much, everybody. We're back. Thank you. We really appreciate you being here with us. I always have one question. We started to talk about it because as a networking facilitator, my goal was always to make everyone feel comfortable. But there have been times when I have had to ask people to leave that have been overtly aggressive, overtly political. Some people are not welcoming and nurturing and accepting. And I think, you have a level of control over that when you're doing face-to-face. Right? Mm-hmm. Yours, because you welcome that emotional conversations. Do you find that people kind of, go off in those kinds of tangents? Because nowadays, every networking event, every networking location is just a cross-section of the world. Nowadays, everyone is impatient. Everyone is combative in a lot of cases. Everyone can be argumentative. And we as facilitators, we bear the responsibility, I believe, to make everyone feel comfortable. Everyone feel accepted. Everyone feel heard. Everyone have the opportunity to communicate their thoughts in a accepting. You don't have to agree with them. right? But you do have to respect them. And that's one of the things that I've always tried for. How do you weave that, because people get beer muscles on, when they're online.
Yeah. That one's pretty simple and easy for Tucson Thrive. And, we have 2 rules before the discussion starts. Rule number 1 is no monologues. Okay. And so if you have something to say it, keep it brief, keep it tight, and then, allow other people to have a voice. Rule number 2, we all come from different walks of life. We all have different experiences. We all have maybe different traumas, highs and lows, values, beliefs, all sorts of things. And so I just ask everyone to be respectful of that, and not everyone's going to have the same beliefs and opinions. And however, with that being said, we welcome that. If you have a different belief, that's the whole point of Tucson Thrive.
Sure.
And you asked for it. You asked for them.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, it's beneficial too to have varying viewpoints. You don't want a room filled up with people who think exactly like you. I've changed my mind when faced with, better evidence of what I thought going in.
Yeah.
So
there was one point where I remember you asked the group, and I thought I was the only one on the whole page that had this view, and I said it, and I had a bunch of people bouncing. Yeah, that's right. So it's interesting. You don't know what you don't know until you put it out there, and you think the same way. Okay, I get it. So it was really interesting. It's a good mix. It's a great. Where do you find your people to come on board?
That's a great question. I think a lot of it's word of mouth.
Okay.
Somebody has a friend. I post about it on LinkedIn periodically, so people find it through there as well. And then also I just, text people.
Yeah.
And say, hey, here's an invite.
Yeah.
Come or don't come. And it's because it's free and virtual. Like there's cycles. I would say on average, like maybe 20 to 24 people per event, and that's great. Remember, this stemmed from me and one other person sitting in a coffee shop.
Exactly. Yeah.
So if I have 2-3 other people with me, I don't care.
Multiply that.
It's great.
Exponentially.
And so there's really in a I don't know how to say this nicely, but the bar is low. And so.
But interesting. Although it maybe seem low to me, it's actually quite high. You do what none of the other groups do, is you appeal to the people that maybe aren't comfortable networking.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all building these, large, well-attended, grandiose events and lunches or dinners or drinks, or wander around with a beer, and we're creating the BBD, the bigger, better deal, which is for someone like you said, that's more introverted, that's shyer.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing for them.
Yeah.
Everybody's going in a direction. So, to me, it's a high bar set for people that maybe this will never appeal to. For the person that's introverted or shy, none of these things are going to work for them. They're never going to feel comfortable, and if they go, they're just going to feel forced. And whereas yours, to me, it's not low at all. It's the highest bar set by something that addresses a enormously underserved group.
Yeah.
The other thing too is I was going to mention, I've had people that were disabled have reached out to me and say, I'm in a wheelchair, I'm handicapped, I've got this, I've got that. It's very difficult. Does it have a ramp, or is there an elevator, or can I get in? And depending on the venue, normally it has certain accommodations. But even with the accommodations, it's an enormous challenge for somebody to do something that is easy for most people.
Yeah.
And whereas yours just absolutely speaks to that. You can have the same wonderful experience and not have to go through all of the pitfalls in order to have that happen. So to me, that's incredibly high value.
Yeah. I love what you said, quality over quantity. That's what it's really all about.
Yeah.
So.
And, Don, to that point, that's why we don't call ourselves a networking group. There's nothing wrong with networking groups. However, there is a negative stigma. There's a negative stigma that I'm going to walk into a room and you're going to try to sell me something the second we meet.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's a part of it. And, I have another hot take about networking. Like I said, no judgment, but it's just what I've experienced. People are networking in the wrong places. And, I've been kind of spewing this for the last couple of years is if you're going to a networking event, most people, a pretty high majority are trying to sell something.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people, it's salespeople talking to salespeople. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And is that really the wisest way to spend your time to get an ROI? If you're doing it for B2B, great.
Mm-hmm.
Then obviously there is a value. But most people that are looking for B2C, it's kind of hard to sell to a room full of people that are trying to sell you.
I think if you do it wrong, yes. But I think there's a way of doing that right.
Yeah.
I really think there's a way. And these are the tips that we talk about on this podcast is that, you mentioned you had listened to the one with episode 3 with the Pipers.
Yeah.
I think they do it right. They work on building those relationships first and that sort of thing. So that's where hopefully someone will get out of this podcast.
Yes. Be that exception. Be like the Pipers.
Yes.
Be genuine.
And the Crandalls.
Be authentic.
And some of the other guests we've had.
You said it too. You said, what brings you here? Most people, when they meet someone, the first thing is their business card. Bang, here you go. Mm-hmm. So you see me through the filter of this is me, this is my card, this is my business, this is what I do.
Yeah.
Very few people ever connect, which properly the way that you said it, with as a person. You're not your business. You could be at another company next week, next year, whatever. Yeah. In many cases, you might be. But the personality follows. That's why I love what brought you to today. Yeah. You don't have to talk about, there are times when I don't get around to what I do because it's just not right to do that. So I think that you're right. I think done properly, I think a networking group is an opportunity to have like-minded people in the world. Yeah. I often say it's like a dating site. Everybody that's going to a dating site is going there to date. Yep. So don't be surprised when, when you're there to date, it doesn't come as a surprise. It's the same thing with networking. You're going there to meet people, not necessarily be sold. And I do think that that's a misnomer, is that people think that I'm coming there to try to sell somebody or somebody's going to try to sell me. No, you're just putting a bunch of people in a room that you don't have to, that are all queued up, that just want to meet new people. Now, if something comes from it, great. But if it doesn't, I've had great networking experience and not made one viable contact. Yeah. And yet thought it was an incredible utilization of my time. Yeah. So I tend to agree that I think if you go in with the idea of selling, you're going to really struggle. But if you go in to say, I'm just going to make some connections and
make some relationships,
if something comes out of it, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, we've had some pretty meaty, heavy-duty conversation. That's just a taste of what you can get from the Tucson Thrive event. So you want to tell us how we can get a hold of you or your event and go from there, please.
You can find me on LinkedIn, Frank Vidal, Vidal.
He's the guy with their own personal brand.
Yes.
The jacket and the glasses.
Yes.
Jacket.
Or you can go to TucsonThrive.org.
Okay.
And that takes you to that week's invite with bio of the guest speaker, a little brief agenda, and how to get on the call.
You can also find his information on how to get on at Tucson or NetworkingTucson.com, a place where you can go to find all the networking events in town.
Absolutely.
But thank you, Frank, very much for coming on. We really appreciate you taking your time out and being part of our show.
I love what you're building.
Thank you. Any last words? A few seconds here.
Stay connected. That's
his line.
That's my line.
If you feel
I'll let you close with
his line, he stole it.
If you're depressed, if you're lonely, if you're anxious, this is not the time to crawl into a hole and be by yourself.
Absolutely.
Find people that you like, that you love, that you want to spend time with, and then everything else will be taken care of.
Phenomenal.
That's great words to end on.
Yes.
Excellent.
Thank you very much. Stay connected, everybody.
You've just experienced the Tucson NetworKings podcast. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe for more great tips about networking in Southern Arizona. If you'd like to leave a question, comment, or future topic, you can email them to TucsonNetworkings@gmail.com. Also, if you'd like to know more about all of the networking events happening in town, make sure and check out NetworkingTucson.com. That's NetworkingTucson.com. Know where to go.